Okay, today's lesson is in Module 1, Lesson 5. We are going to learn how to name decimal fractions in expanded form, unit form, and word form by applying place value reasoning. Okay, so these are all sprints you would have to do in class, so we're going to skip those and we're going to go straight to our concept. Notice I have the number 3047 and it's written in words. I'm going to take the word form of this number and I'm going to change it to standard. Well, remember standard form uses only digits. So I'm going to change from words to using only digits. So I see 3,047. So there's no hundreds. And all I have is 47. So I took the words and I changed them to numbers. First thing I noticed is that I had 3,000. So I put 3 in the thousands place. Well, because I know my place values, I know that hundreds is right behind thousands. And because I didn't see hundreds in my words, I knew there was no hundred. So all that was left for me to write was 47. So my number in standard form will be 3,047. Now, if I wanted to write that in expanded form makes the number look larger. I'm going to write it using multiplication facts. And I'm going to start by putting each digit with its place value. So the first digit I see is 3. And I'm going to times it by its place value, which is the thousands place. Plus, I have a 0 in the hundreds place. So I don't have to put 0 times 100, but I could. But I'm going to skip it because I don't have to write it. Moving to my next digit, which is 4. And I'm going to times it by its place value, which is the tens place. Plus my next digit, which is 7. And I'm going to times it by its place value, which is the ones place. So my expanded form is simply my digit times its place value. So we got 3 times 1,000 plus 4 times 10 plus 7 times 1. So that gives me my expanded form. Our next is unit form. When we write in unit form, all we do is write the digits and we write a word. So unit form is going to be digits and a word. So the digits I see are 3,047. And to make it unit form, I'm going to give that last unit. The 7 is in the ones place, so my unit is ones. So my unit form is 3,047 ones. So remember, with standard, it's all digits. Expanded is going to have multiplication problems. And then unit is going to have the number with its last unit. Okay. Now we're going to represent 1,000 and 3,000. And first we're going to write them in standard, then expanded, then unit. And then I think I added fraction on here. Yeah, we're going to go into fraction as well. So I'm going to start with 1,000. And I'm starting on the place value chart. We know that to write 1,000, we need 1 in the thousands place. Well, notice my decimal is all the way over here. And in our previous lessons, we learned that whenever I have empty place values and I need to get back to my decimal, I simply write zeros. We normally like that 0 in the ones place, but remember, we don't have to have it. So there's my standard form, because I use only digits. So my standard form would be 0 and 1,000. Nothing but digits were used. Now for expanded form, remember that's a multiplication sentence. Notice all of these place values are 0, so I don't have to write anything for them. The only place value that has a digit is the thousands. So for expanded form, I'm going to write that digit times its place value, which is the thousands place. So there's our expanded form. For unit form, remember that is the number or the digit and its unit. So the only digit we have is 1, and the unit is thousands. Our last form is fraction form. That simply means write the number as a fraction. Well, if you notice, I don't have a whole number. All I have is the decimal. So I'm going to write my number on top that I have, or my digit, which is 1. And I'm going to write the place value it's in at the bottom. It's in the thousands place. So there's my 1,000. So notice for standard, we use only digits. Expanded, we use the multiplication sentence. For unit, we use the number or the digit and its unit. And for the fraction, we just wrote it as a fraction. Okay. Now, let's do these same steps for our second number. The second number they gave us was 3,000. So if I put it on my place value chart, all I have to do is write the 3 in the thousands. Notice I'm not at my decimal, and we learned in previous lessons to put placeholders to get me to my decimal. So I need zeros. And we normally like to write a 0 in the ones, but as I said, we don't have to. So because I use only digits, there's my standard form. Remember, for my expanded, I need a multiplication sentence. The only digit that's not a 0, because remember, we don't have to write zeros, we can skip them, is my 3. And I'm going to times it by its place value, which is the thousandths place. For my unit form, the number I see is 3, and its unit is thousands. And then to finish it off, we're going to write it as a fraction. Well, the number we see is 3 at the top. That will be my numerator. And its place value will be the denominator, which is thousands. So in fraction form, it would be 3,000. So remember, standard is all digits. Expanded uses a multiplication sentence. Unit uses a number and the unit. And the fraction is simply a fraction. Now let's use 1300s, and we're going to write it as standard, expanded, and unit, or 13,000s. So starting with standard. First thing I noticed is this word right here. Thousands tells me I need 3 decimal places after the decimal. So I'm going to start with that. Tenths, hundreds, thousands. I already know that my 3 has to sit in the thousands place, which made my 1 shift next door. And to get me back to my decimal, I need a 0. And remember, we've been writing 0 in the ones place. So there's our standard form. Notice my steps. First thing I did was found my unit, which was thousands. Told me I needed 3 decimal places, tenths, hundreds, thousands. The 3 sits in the thousands. The 1 had to shift. I need a 0 to get me back to the decimal. So there's my standard form. Now for expanded form, remember we need multiplication sentences. Remember, I don't have to write anything for these zeros. I could, but I don't have to. So I'm going to go to my first digit that is not a 0, and that's 1. And I'm going to times it by its place value, which is the hundredths place. So the 1 is in the hundredths place. Plus, its next digit is 3, and I'm going to times it by its place value, which is the thousandths place. There's my expanded form. I got the 1 in the hundredths place, I've got the 3 in the thousandths place. Now for my unit form, remember that is simply writing my number. I'm going to pretend like the decimal is not there. So all I need is the number and the last unit, which is thousands. So there's our 3 forms. We have standard, which is all digits. Expanded, which uses multiplication sentences. And then unit, which has a number and a unit. Okay. Let's use a bigger number. Now we're going to do 25 and 413 thousandths. We're going to start with word, then write it in expanded and unit. Can you tell me what form this is already written in? Hopefully you say it's standard. Because it's already in digits, that is standard form. So let's start with word. I like to do mine in steps. First step is I'm only going to look at what's in front of the decimal. So all I see is 25. So the first thing I'm going to write is 25. So in words, I write 25. Anytime I get to that decimal, I always say the word and in its place. Okay, the decimal puts the whole number and the decimal together. So I say and. Now my next step is I'm going to read just the numbers I see behind the decimal. Pretend like this whole number is not there. So if I'm looking at it, all I see is 413. So that's what I write. 413. And because it's a decimal, I have to end with that last decimal place, which is thousands. So I have to end it with the word thousands. So my steps were, I did my whole number first, which was 25. So I wrote 25. When I got to the decimal, I wrote and for it. Then I read just my digits that's after the decimal, which is 413. And then because it's a decimal, I have to end with the decimal place value, which is thousands. So there's our word form. Expanded form, once again, we're simply writing multiplication sentences. Each of these digits have to be multiplied by its place value. So starting with the 2, I write it. And I ask myself what place value is the 2 in? It's in the tens place. So I need 2 times 10. Plus my next digit, which is 5. What place value is the 5 in? The ones place. So I do times 1. Moving on to my next digit, which is the 4. And I ask myself what place value is the 4 in? It's in the tenths place. I'm going to times by the tenths. Moving on, my next digit is the 1. What place value is the 1 in? The hundredths place. Oops, I have my times. Plus, my last digit is a 3. And what place value is the 3 in? It's in the thousandths place. So my expanded form is simply each digit multiplied by its place value. The 2 is in the tens, the 5 is in the ones, the 4 is in the tenths, the 1 is in the hundredths, the 3 is in the thousands. Now for the uniform is the easiest form, I think. I'm simply going to copy my digits, pretend like I don't see the decimal. So I see a 2, 5, 4, 1, 3. There's my number. And because it's uniform, I need to end with the unit. Their very last unit is thousands. So I write the word thousands. So my uniform is 25,413 thousandths. So starting with our word form, which is our words, expanded form, which has multiplication sentences, and then our uniform, which is a number and a unit. Now we're going to write it as a fraction, or has to be a mixed number because we have a whole number and we'll have a fraction. So anytime you have a whole number, whole numbers are written as whole numbers, 25. Nothing on the bottom, simply 25. Now everything behind the decimal is part of a fraction, because a decimal can be written as a fraction and a fraction can be written as a decimal. So the number I see is 413. So I'm going to write it as my numerator. My denominator is the last place value. Well, that 3 is in the thousandths place, so I need 1,000 as my denominator. So remember, my whole number went in front. Everything behind the decimal was my numerator. The very last place value was my denominator. So here's my mixed number. So we've written this number in word form, expanded form, unit form, and fraction form. Okay. Let's try these last two. Starting with the first number, we have 404 thousandths. Notice, in the number 404 thousandths, I'm going to underline the one we're working on. I do not see the word and, so I know I do not have a whole number. So I'm going to just put a 0 in the place of my whole number. So 0 decimal. Notice, you don't see and, so there's no whole number. That means everything I'm looking at is a decimal. So the word thousandths tells me I need 3 place values after that decimal. This 4 right here is going to sit in there. Now, notice the 4 and the 4 are not side by side. Therefore, the 4 and the 4 cannot be side by side in my number. So in order for this to be 400, I need a 4 and a 0. Now I have 404 thousandths. I repeat, the reason I did not put the 4s side by side is because in the word form, they're not side by side. There's a word in the middle. So I had to put a 0 there. So that gets me to 404 thousandths. Now let's see what this number is going to look like. Because they look similar, but there's one thing that changes it up. And that's this and. And changes it up. Because of this and, I now know that 400 is a whole number. So if I write 400 as a whole number, that means I need 400 and says put a decimal. There's my 400. Notice the difference. This one did not have an and, so it was all decimal. This one has an and, which means we have a whole number and a decimal. Now left for my decimal side, I see thousandths again, which meant I need 3 decimal places, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That 4 gets to sit in the thousands. Notice I don't have any other numbers. So in order for me to get back to this decimal, I have to fill in with zeros. So this is 404 thousandths. That and is what took the number to having a whole number and a decimal instead of all decimal. Okay. So that's our lesson for today. And in this lesson, we learned how to name decimal fractions in expanded form, uniform, word form, and fraction form. And we applied place value reasoning to it. That's it for today.